My ex cheated and said I'd never find someone like her. A year later, I'm dating a travel host who had a crush on me since college. I still remember the moment I saw her. Alina. She walked into the little French bistro like she owned the place, sleek black dress, heels that didn't even click on the hardwood, just whispered. I felt underdressed the second she sat down. My name's Derek. I'm 33 years old, live in Hoboken, and work as a logistics manager for a tech supply firm across the river in Manhattan. It's not glamorous, but it pays well and I'm good at it. I'd signed up for this matchmaking agency thing on a dare from a buddy. I didn't think anything serious would come of it. Then Alina sat across from me. You're Derek? She asked, one brow slightly raised, half smiling like she already knew the punchline to some joke. Yeah, I said, clearing my throat. You're definitely not what I expected. That made her laugh. Low, confident, effortless. And what were you expecting? Someone more? I started, then stopped myself. Normal. She smirked, set down her clutch, and said, normal's boring. She ordered mussels and white wine. I had steak frites and water, which suddenly felt like a childish choice. But she didn't judge. If anything, she seemed impressed that I knew who Jean-Baptiste Simeon Chardin was. She was an art gallery curator uptown. High-end stuff, estate sales and private exhibitions for people who had trust funds named after them. I figured I'd be out of my depth. Instead, we talked for 2 hours. About obscure painters from the Dutch Golden Age. About her favorite museum, the Phillips Collection in D.C., and mine, weirdly, the Met Cloisters. She had this dry, biting sense of humor that caught me off guard. She said things with a straight face that made me spit out my water once. I liked her immediately. By dessert, something had shifted. Her eyes stayed on mine longer. My knee kept brushing hers under the table and neither of us moved it. When the check came, I reached for it, but she leaned in and said, "You can get the next one." I grinned. So there's a next one? She didn't even blink. Obviously, that was 6 weeks ago. Since then, we've spent nearly every night together, either at her place or mine. Her apartment's nicer, but she says she likes my view of the skyline. We've already met each other's friends. She calls me her boyfriend. I've updated my dating profile to say not active. If I'm being honest, I keep waiting for the punchline. She's tall, brilliant, funny, and one of those women who walks into a room and everyone notices. Men look at her. Women envy her. And yet, she's genuinely interested in me. Me, a guy who spends his days dealing with late shipments and carrier delays. A few nights ago, I caught a guy at the coffee shop checking her out hard. She didn't even look his way. Instead, she was laughing at something I said about DHL invoices. And yeah, for a second I felt that ugly twist in my gut. Jealousy, insecurity, the whole cocktail. But then she looked up at me and smiled like I was the only person in the world. I decided right then I wasn't going to ruin it. Whatever this is, however long it lasts, I'm all in. It was around midnight when we were driving back from her friend's house in Fort Greene. Alina had this thing where she always offered to drive my car when we left a party. Said it made her feel like she was in a rom-com but without the cringe. I didn't mind. She looked good behind the wheel. I had the window cracked, the wind slipping in, and we were listening to some moody French pop song she swore was about heartbreak, even though it sounded like elevator music. Then, out of nowhere, she said it. Okay, she began, her voice light, playful. If you could have dinner with any celebrity, dead or alive, who would it be? I shrugged. I dunno. Maybe Dave Grohl. She raised an eyebrow. Safe choice. What? You don't approve? No, it's sweet, she said, flashing a smirk. Very modest of you. I laughed. All right, your turn. She grinned. I still on the road. Oh, I'd do dinner with Ryan Gosling. Or Idris Elba. Or both. I smiled, expecting a laugh. But then she added, honestly, none of them would say no. I turned toward her. What? She glanced at me briefly, then back to the road, her smirk deepening. I mean, come on. You think a guy like that's gonna turn me down? I chuckled, trying to play it off. You're serious? She shrugged like it was obvious. I'm not saying I wouldn't cheat or anything. But let's be real. It's a fantasy dinner. And, I mean, look at me. She wasn't wrong. Alina was the type of beautiful that turned heads in restaurants. But still, something about the way she said it, so casual, so certain, caught me off guard. I tried to laugh again. You're confident. She smiled. Confidence is earned. There was a beat of silence. The kind that stretches just a little too long. She turned up the volume slightly. Don't get all weird about it. I'm not, I said, probably too quickly. And that was that. We didn't talk about it again. By the time we got to my place, she was joking about the parking meter situation like nothing happened. But later, lying in bed with her curled into my side, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Not the celebrities, not even the joke. It was the way she said it, like she didn't just believe it, like she knew it. At first, it was little things. A missed text here, a delayed response there. Alina started working later than usual, staying at the gallery for evening viewings or sudden client meetings that just popped up. I didn't think much of it. Her job was high pressure, high profile. I knew that going in, but the excuses started sounding thinner. One Thursday night, I was already in bed when she got home close to midnight. She breezed in, still dressed like she came straight from a magazine shoot. Silk blouse, heels, that perfect lipstick she only wore when she wanted to impress someone. "Hey," I said, blinking against the light she just turned on. "Long day?" She let out a breath, tossing her bag on the chair. "You wouldn't believe it. A client from Paris dropped in unannounced. Total chaos." I nodded. "You could have texted." I was starting to wonder. She gave me a quick look, then walked into the bathroom. "I figured you'd be asleep." Another night, she told me she had to attend a last-minute gallery dinner. "Just colleagues," she said, but didn't offer more. When I asked who was going, she gave a vague answer and changed the subject. Then came the mood shifts. She got sharper with me. If I asked where she was or what time she'd be home, she'd roll her eyes. "You're not my dad, Derek," she snapped once while grabbing a glass of water. "Why are you always asking where I am?" "I'm not keeping tabs," I said, trying to stay calm. "I'm just trying to feel included." She scoffed. "Included? It's work. I don't ask about your shipment manifests or whatever you deal with all day." That one stung. She used to ask about my job, even joked that my spreadsheets were the least sexy thing about me. Now it was like my life was background noise. I told myself it was stress. I told myself she was under pressure with a new exhibit coming up. But even when things settled down, she stayed distant. Her hugs got shorter. She kissed me less. She didn't laugh at my dumb impressions anymore. One Saturday, we were having coffee in the kitchen when I finally said it. "Something's off. Alina, are we okay?" She looked up from her phone and blinked like I'd interrupted something important. "We're fine." "God, Derek, you always do this when I'm busy." "I'm not trying to fight," I said. "I just feel like I'm losing you." She set her mug down a little too hard. "I'm just tired, that's all. Can we not make this a whole thing?" I nodded, but inside, I knew. Something was changing. And whatever it was, I wasn't being told the truth. By the second week of her late nights, I stopped pretending things were normal. Alina had always been sharp, composed, never flustered. But now she was slipping. One night, she came home in a rush and tossed her coat over the back of the couch without looking at me. Her perfume, something warm and expensive, hit me stronger than usual. I don't know why that stuck with me, but it did. Then there were the messages. I saw her texting with someone under a contact saved as G, then quickly locking her phone when I walked in. I told myself it could be anything. Gallery stuff, a publicist, a vendor. But the pit in my stomach didn't agree. One night, I stood in the hallway outside the bathroom, listening as she whispered into the phone with the door closed. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone, soft, breathy, it didn't feel like work. That's when I thought about checking her phone. I even reached for it once when she left it charging on the counter. I stared at the screen for a long time, thumb hovering, but I couldn't do it. Instead, I did something worse. I opened my laptop and searched private investigators near Hoboken. That's how I met Marvin. Grizzled, mid-50s, wore a wrinkled blazer and drank diner coffee like it was his religion. We met in a booth at a place off Route 3. When I told him my story, how I met Alina, how fast it all moved, how things started to shift, he didn't laugh, didn't judge. He just nodded and pulled out a small notepad. "You want me to follow her?" he asked. I hesitated. "I want to know what's real." Marvin scribbled something. "I'll do 10 days. No contact during that time. If you interfere, I walk. You clear on that?" "Yeah," I said, though my stomach was flipping. "She driving your car?" "No, she's got her own. A black Lexus, plates end in 2N8. He wrote that down too. "Late nights, right? We'll start this week." He slid a contract across the table. I didn't even read it. I just signed. On the way home, I drove aimlessly, past the exit to my apartment 3 times before finally pulling in. When I walked through the door, Alina was on the couch, legs tucked under her, glass of red wine in hand. "Hey," she said casually. "Where'd you go?" "Just needed air." I lied. She nodded and turned back to the TV. Just like that. Like nothing was wrong. But everything was wrong. And now, someone else was watching. On the 10th day, Marvin texted, "Come by the office. It's ready." I stared at those words for a long time before I got in the car. The drive felt like a dream, like I was floating above myself, watching a man about to have his whole world ripped apart. Marvin's office was a small place above a locksmith shop in Jersey City. When I walked in, he was already sitting at his desk with a sealed envelope between his hands. "You sure you want to see this?" he asked. I nodded. I didn't say a word. I didn't trust myself to speak. He slid the envelope across the desk. I opened it slowly, like it might explode. Inside were 6 printed photos, each with a timestamp. The first one was from 3 nights ago. Alina, outside a building I didn't recognize. Dressed sharp, short coat, heels, clutch in hand, smiling like someone on a date. Beside her stood a man, tall, tan coat, scruffy beard. His hand was on her lower back. The next photo? They were kissing. Not a polite peck. Not goodbye. A kiss. Familiar. Confident. The rest were worse. Them entering the building together. Her Lexus parked out front. Another shot of them laughing outside a different condo. Same guy. Different night. Same patterns. Over and over. Marvin spoke gently. Name's Julian Marcel. Owns an antique dealership in Manhattan. French by way of New Orleans. Lives alone. I just nodded, still staring at the photos. You okay, man? I didn't answer. I couldn't tell if I was breathing. He leaned back, folding his arms. You want everything else? Dates? Addresses? Logs? No. I croaked. This is enough. I don't remember walking to the car. I don't remember driving home. I just remember sitting in the parking lot of our building with the envelope on the passenger seat, my fingers still numb. It wasn't the cheating that broke me. It was the proof. I'd lived for weeks in uncertainty, clinging to hope, making excuses. But now there it was, black and white, her hands on someone else, her smile, that kiss, that damn kiss. The worst part? She'd come home after those nights. She'd crawled into our bed, wrapped her legs around mine, told me she was tired, that it was a long night. She had lied straight to my face and kissed me with his breath still on her. I sat in that car for almost 2 hours before finally going upstairs. Alina wasn't home yet. Her side of the bed was still perfectly made. Her robe was still slung over the bathroom door. I walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and stared at the counter. This was the future I'd imagined with her morning coffee, shared chores, laughter echoing through these walls. Gone. All of it. Replaced with silence and 6 photos that told me everything I needed to know. I waited until Sunday morning. Alina was always slow to get up on Sundays. Lingered in bed, scrolled her phone, made a show of hating sunlight. But today, I was already dressed and sitting at the kitchen table when she walked in, yawning and pulling her hair into a bun. You're up early, she said, rubbing her eyes. I didn't sleep. She looked at me, half curious, half annoyed. Everything okay? Sit down. The tone must have caught her off guard because she blinked, then pulled out the chair across from me. What's going on? I reached into my bag and laid the photos on the table one by one, like evidence in a trial. Her eyes fell to them. 1 second passed. 2. Then she laughed, a quick, nervous laugh that sounded more like a cough. Oh my God, are you serious? I didn't speak. She flipped through them, then set them down like they bored her. Well, you really hired a PI? You've been spying on me. I needed the truth, I said. Alina leaned back, arms crossed. So what now? You gonna throw a fit? Ask for closure? No, I said calmly. I just want you to look at me and admit it. Her smirk faded slightly. It was just a few nights. A fling. It doesn't mean anything. You kissed him in public. Jesus, Derek. People flirt. People get bored. You were suffocating me. Always asking where I was. Always needing reassurance. It's pathetic. I stared at her. I loved you. She rolled her eyes. You loved the version of me you built in your head. You never even saw me. I swallowed hard. I saw you. She shook her head, almost amused. You really think I was going to settle down with a guy who tracks freight shipments for a living? Be honest, Derek, you always knew I was out of your league. There it was. The thing I had always feared, finally spoken out loud. She stood up, brushing imaginary lint off her blouse. You'll never find someone like me again. I stood too. My voice was low and shaking. I hope I don't. That made her pause. You lied. You used me. You mocked me in your head every time I opened up to you. I stepped forward. I want you to remember this face, this moment. Because when your charm runs out, and it will, no one's going to be there to hold you up. She scoffed. Say the drama. I grabbed the envelope with the photos and ripped it in half right there. Don't worry, I'm not keeping souvenirs. Then I walked to the door. She didn't stop me. She didn't even call my name. She just stood there, arms folded, lips pressed in that same smug line she always wore when she thought she'd won. But she hadn't won. She just lost the only person who actually gave a damn. And I was done. I went back 3 days later to get my things. I didn't call ahead, didn't text, just showed up with a couple boxes and a dead look in my eyes I didn't bother hiding. When I opened the apartment door with my key, she was there, lounging on the couch in a sweatshirt I'd bought her last winter. Feet up, glass of wine in hand. She barely looked surprised. Well, she said, eyes flicking to the boxes. Look who came back. I said nothing. You could have at least texted, she added with a small shrug. I might have made coffee, or cleaned up, I stepped past her without a word and went straight to the bedroom. My shirts were still hanging neatly in the closet, like I hadn't already been erased. I started pulling them down one by one, folding each into the box like it was a task I'd done 1,000 times. From the doorway, she spoke again. Derek, you're really just going to walk away from this? I turned to her, slowly. You made that decision for me. She didn't blink, just smiled a little. I knew you'd come back. You're not the type who lets go easy. I stared at her. No, I'm the type who gives people chances they don't deserve. She rolled her eyes and leaned against the doorframe. God, you're dramatic. I packed in silence for another few minutes while she watched, like this was entertainment for her, a live performance she got to narrate in her head. As I was zipping up my duffel bag, she stepped closer. I mean, you didn't seriously think we were forever, did you? That I was going to spend the rest of my life in Hoboken, making small talk about warehouse logistics. I stood up straight, met her eyes. You know what the worst part is? She tilted her head. Enlighten me. I would have given you everything, I said. I was planning a future. Not just dinners and dates, real stuff. The boring stuff. The good stuff. I would have built a life with you. She looked at me, her expression unreadable now. Maybe she expected me to yell, or cry, or beg. I just walked past her, carried my box to the front door. Before I stepped out, I paused. She was still watching. Lose my number, I said. Oh, come on. I cut her off with a quiet, final, blocked, and that was that. Her voice faded as the door shut behind me, her parting words barely more than air. She kept texting for a week after that random stuff. One day angry, the next apologetic. Her greatest hits. The last message said, "You'll never find anyone like me." That was the only thing she was right about. 3 months passed. Life moved on, as it always does. I threw myself into work, picked up a few new projects, even started running again in the mornings just to burn through the leftover anger. Alina faded like background noise. A bad dream I didn't need to talk about anymore. Then came the reunion. I almost didn't go. 15 years since graduation, and I hadn't kept in touch with many people from college. But one of the old crew, Rachel, messaged me on Facebook and said, "Come on, Derek, you could use a little nostalgia." I figured, why not? The hotel ballroom in Jersey City was packed with faces I barely recognized. Everyone looked older, softer. A few had kids. A few had more hair. A few had a lot less. I found Rachel near the bar, hugging everyone and buzzing with stories. She looked exactly the same bright smile, same over-the-top laugh. "Derek Turner," she said, pulling me into a hug. "Still got the same brooding stare." I see. I laughed. Still got the same energy. We caught up for a bit, talking about jobs, life, failed relationships. I was halfway through my drink when she suddenly leaned in, nudged me, and said, "So, you know Isabel's here, right?" My stomach flipped. "Isabel?" She gave me a look. "Come on. Isabel Hart, journalism major. Tiny girl, huge curls. You used to argue with her in ethics class like it was a sport." Of course I remembered Isabel. She was the cool one. The kind of girl who quoted authors in casual conversation and somehow pulled it off. We'd circled the same friend groups but never got close. She always felt out of reach. "She's here?" I asked, scanning the room. Rachel smirked. "She just stepped out, but yeah, she flew in from New Zealand." My eyebrows shot up. "She moved there. She's a travel show host now," Rachel said, sipping her drink. "Does these documentary-style features. Super successful. But get this, she asked about you." I blinked. "Wait, what?" "She asked if you were coming. Told me, get this, she used to have the biggest crush on you back in school." I laughed. "No way." Rachel nodded, grinning. "Dead serious. Said you were too smart to talk to, and she thought you were into that girl who wore neon leggings all the time." I stood there, stunned. Isabel Hart had a crush on me? Back then? Suddenly, all those moments, the debates, the side glances, the one time she asked to borrow my notes, started to look a little different. Rachel clapped me on the back. "You should message her. She's single, still badass." And in that moment, something shifted. Every smug word Alina ever said about being out of my league, it cracked and crumbled under one simple truth. Someone even better had noticed me long before she ever did. It took me 2 days to find her online. Isabel Hart. Verified Instagram account. 37,000 followers. Clips of her exploring ancient temples in Cambodia, riding mopeds through the streets of Hanoi, laughing as she held a koala in Australia. She looked happy, effortlessly cool, just like I remembered. I stared at the message box for 20 minutes before typing something simple. "Hey, it's Derek Turner from college. Rachel mentioned you'd asked about me at the reunion. Just wanted to say hi." I hit send before I could overthink it. She replied 2 hours later. "Derek, I was hoping you'd reach out. How have you been?" From there, it just flowed. Messages turned into long emails. Emails turned into video calls. I caught her while she was filming in New Zealand, the South Island, some documentary about Maori coastal communities. Her backdrop was always stunning. Oceans, cliffs, sunshine. But it was her smile that stuck with me. We talked about everything. College memories, failed relationships, travel stories. I told her about the whole mess with Alina, the PI, the photos, the final walkout. She didn't flinch, just nodded and said, "That's some high-level narcissist nonsense right there." That made me laugh harder than I had in months. Why didn't we talk more back then? I asked once during a late-night call. Isabel smiled, tugging at a loose curl near her ear. You were always surrounded by people. You had that focused look, like you were already 5 years into your future. I figured I'd be a distraction. You wouldn't have been, I said. She tilted her head. I know that now. After 3 weeks of regular calls, she sent me a message that made my heart kick up. You should come visit. We're wrapping the shoot next month. I've got time off after that. I booked the ticket that night. Flying halfway around the world for someone I hadn't seen in 15 years should have felt crazy, but it didn't. It felt like the first sane thing I'd done in ages. When I stepped off the plane in Queenstown, she was there at the gate, holding a cardboard sign that read, Turner, the debater. I laughed. Really? Had to make it dramatic, she grinned. Seeing her in person again, no screen, no delay, hit me harder than I expected. She hugged me like she meant it, like she had wanted to for a long time. That week was everything I didn't know I needed. We hiked along ridges that looked like movie sets, ate lamb pies from tiny corner shops, drank wine on a porch overlooking a lake that looked too perfect to be real. One night, we sat on a blanket under the stars. She turned to me and said softly, "You know what you're to me?" What? My unexpected miracle. I didn't know what to say, so I just held her hand. And for the first time in a long time, I believed in something again. Love, timing, second chances, all of it. I posted the first picture without thinking. Just a shot of me and Isabel on a hiking trail, the mountains behind us glowing in the late afternoon light. She had one hand on my shoulder, her other hand holding up a sandwich like it was a trophy. Her caption was funnier, but mine was simpler. Sometimes the best view isn't the landscape. The next morning, my phone buzzed. A name I hadn't seen in weeks lit up the screen. Alina. She had liked the photo, then commented, "Interesting choice." Then the DM came in. "Cute. So this is your big upgrade." I stared at the screen for a full minute, then typed, "This is my life now." She replied in less than a minute. "Wow, you move fast." Pretty sure she has no idea who she's dealing with. I wasn't even mad. Not anymore. There was no more weight behind her words. No more grip on me. Just noise. I wrote back. She knows exactly who I am. That's why she's here. She sent one final message. "You'll never find anyone like me again." I smiled at the screen. Then I typed, slowly and carefully, "You're right. Isabel is orbiting a different planet. You were never even in the same atmosphere." Then I hit block. Not just on Instagram, on everything. Number, socials, email, gone. I turned off my phone and set it down. Out on the porch, Isabel was pouring coffee, still wearing my hoodie, her hair tied up messily. She looked up and smiled when I came out. "Morning. You good?" I nodded, sat down beside her, and took the mug she handed me. "Yeah, actually, I'm really good." She sipped her coffee. "You've got that post-exorcism glow." I laughed. "You have no idea." We sat there in silence for a while, just watching the mist drift off the lake. It felt peaceful in a way I hadn't known in years. I thought about the guy I used to be, the one who second-guessed himself over every little thing, who made excuses for people who treated him like he was disposable, who let a woman like Alina convince him that he was lucky to be chosen. That guy was gone. I had a woman beside me now who saw me for exactly who I was, and liked me more because of it. No games, no manipulation, just honesty. I'd flown thousands of miles to find her, but really, I think I was finding myself. As the sun rose a little higher and the light hit the water just right, I realized something. This wasn't just about closure. This was about beginning again. Not with baggage, but with clarity. With someone real. With someone who called me hers, not because I was convenient, but because I was enough.